He was riddled in credit card debt. He wanted to get out of that. We got out of it. We can now focus our attention on the cars, or we can focus on creating wealth. So what's the goal? And once we kind of peel back the layers to better understand the goal, what we learn is the objective is to put this money to work. Ideally, yeah, paying off the home would be great, or paying off the cars would be great. But if I've got this cash flow, is there an opportunity to do both? As we look at the now what, the objective now is we've used velocity banking to free up this cash flow. Now what we want to do is use reverse velocity banking to start building wealth. So as we kind of talked last week or Sunday or whatnot, we've got Michael. Michael's 35 years of age, and the objective was, hey, I need to eliminate debt. And to kind of belabor the point that you kind of mentioned, we've got these different strategies. Some are actual vehicles that we use, and they all link together. So the objective was, hey, is there an opportunity for Michael to be able to take advantage of some of the same? And just to kind of reiterate or just kind of kind of talk through what we had highlighted last, was he's got a lot of credit card debt. A credit card debt with interest rates that are pretty high. And if he continue down the path that he's on, meaning making his monthly payments, being a good steward and paying off his debt, he'd be looking at paying off somewhere around 385,000. So turning 40,000 into 385, like who would want to do that? And as we dig into his profile, he's got about $225,000 in a mortgage, credit card debt of about 40 grand, which is what we're wanting to be able to get rid of. And then he's got a few vehicles. He originally came to me with, hey, I need to focus on getting rid of this first. And then the objective was to address his vehicles. And once we address the vehicles, then he wants to tackle the mortgage. Again, the original goal was to become debt free. And as you all know, I'm not a fan of debt free because debt free can also leave you broke. But I will head down the path that you asked me to head down in the midst of just trying to understand what the solution might be. So Michael's profile, makes about $6,000 a year. He's got about $5,000 in expenses. That total debt, so that's the mortgages, the cars, and everything together, it's about 300,000. And his cash flow is pretty average. His cash flow is right around $1,000 a month, give or take a few, depending on what happens during the month. And when we had immediately jumped into how to use his previous employer's retirement account to be able to leverage it, to be able to maybe assist with some of this debt elimination. And so the thought process was, hey, he's got a previous employer's plan with about $40,000 in it. So is there an opportunity to self-direct that $40,000, and which would give him a vehicle to then jumpstart or quickly address some of this debt that he has? And so we kind of talked through the process of doing so, some of the opportunities around having a 401k. Again, I won't dig into any of that tonight. I really just want to jump into the example. And again, the example is we've got Michael, 35. He's got about $1,000 in cash flow today. And the objective is, now that he has this self-directed 401k with $40,000 in it, he's able to borrow against it. He's able to borrow against it for approximately 50% of what's in it, up to $50,000 here. So he can borrow up to 50,000, up to 50%. I'm sorry, he can borrow 50% of what's in it up to $50,000. So if he has 40,000, the max that he can borrow from this 40,000 that he has is 20. So the objective is to put that 20 to work. And again, just to reiterate, $6,000 in income, $5,000 in expenses, and he's got current cash flow of $1,000. But notice, if that $5,000 in expenses, though, is broken out into a few things. He's got a $1,500 mortgage. He's got $1,450 in monthly expenses. And again, we had talked about the three vehicles. Those three vehicles are split out around somewhere around $1,250 a month in monthly payments is what he's paying. And between his credit cards, he's got 7 of them. Between his 7 credit cards, he's got about $800 a month that he's spending. So in total, his expenses equates to about $5,000. Again, his income is about $6,000. So what is velocity banking? So let's first start there, because what we want to do is use the velocity banking process to be able to hopefully get him out of debt using the cash flow that he has. So velocity banking is what? It's placing all of your income on some debt tool. We have to identify that debt tool. So the income goes into your checking account and immediately hits your debt tool, whatever that debt tool is called. We then take that dollar amount that's sitting on the debt tool and we pay bills from it. So we're going to pay bills from the credit card or line of credit, whatever the debt tool is we identify, pay bills from it. And once we do that, all of that cash flow ends up living on the debt tool. And so ultimately, what happens is we're focusing our attention on the debt tool itself to pay it down as quickly as possible. And as we pay down that debt tool, as it hits zero, we then have to go find more debt. So ultimately, again, we got 6,000 going in. When that 6,000 hits his checking account, we're going to put all 6,000 onto the debt tool and pay the $5,000 in bills from here, which means there's $1,000 of cash flow that sits on this tool, which is what pays off the balance of that credit card. But let's kind of talk through what those larger debts are. So before we add the 401k loan, what are we dealing with? We've got a $20,000 credit card. We've got 3 credit cards equating to about 16,000 and 3 other credit cards equating to about 4,000 in total. So this is the 40,000 in debt. 20, 16, and 4, it's about $40,000 in total debt that we're looking to get rid of. And once we borrow the $20,000 from our 401k loan, we're going to split that 40,000. I'm sorry, split 40,000. We're going to split that 20,000 amongst these bills. So we're going to take 4,000 of it and pay off these 3 credit cards. So then we will end up with a zero balance. We're going to take a portion of this 20,000, pay down, I think it's about 10,000 of the total amount on this card, which leaves us 6,000. My bad. It's right there in front of me. I'm going to take 6,000 of this 20,000, pay down 6,000 on these 3 credit cards, which will leave us about a $10,000 balance. And then this last card, we're going to cut in half. We're going to take the remaining 10,000, cut this credit card in half, leaving about a $10,000 balance. The monthly payments that you're seeing, that's the monthly payment currently. So if we don't use the 401k at all, if he was just making the normal monthly payments, it equates to about $400 on the $20,000 credit card, $300 a month for the group of 6 that equates to 16, and about $100 a month for the group that equates to about 400k. 400k of about 4k. And so ultimately, once we dump this 401k loan, this $20,000 amongst these cards, all of the balances change, which means all of the monthly payments also change. So the monthly payment ends up going to zero here, ends up going to about, I think it's about $200 is what we end up paying here, and about $200 is what we end up paying here. So ultimately, this one goes away, this gets cut, and this gets cut. So when that happens, there's a change in his cash flow, but not a significant change. And it's because, yes, these are his normal debts. And there's a debt tool that we've identified, but we also picked up $370 a month in that 401k loan. Again, we borrowed 50% of what was in our 401k, borrowed $20,000. We're charging ourselves, I can't remember the interest rate. I want to say it's somewhere around 11% in total, I think. But bottom line is borrowing $20,000 from our own 401k. We set the standard on what that interest rate is, no one else. We determine how that 401k is going to be paid back. And he agreed that the $370 a month was sufficient. But when we do that, even though we paid off a few cards, because we added $370 in an expense, our cash flow shifted from $49.70, which means ultimately our cash flow ends up being somewhere around $30 extra, $30 more than what it was prior. So it went from 1,000 to 1,030. So it did increase some, but it did not increase a lot. So now let's talk about velocity banking and what that looks like. So again, income comes in of 6,000. When the 6,000 comes in, it immediately goes on to the debt tool. The debt tool is that original credit card that was $20,000, had a $20,000 limit and a $20,000 balance. It was maxed out. But when we dumped half of our 401k onto it, that $10,000, it changed the balance from 20,000 down to 10. Well, when you put all of the income onto that $10,000 card, it knocks the balance down to 4. And yes, there's a $200 payment, but once we dump all of our income onto this card, it also satisfies that payment. And I'm confident here's where the comments will come around. but there's still interest that has to be paid, and not all of the 6,000 is being taken into consideration. You're absolutely correct. But for this example, when that $6,000 goes onto that credit card, this I'm saying this payment is satisfied. It is no longer due. And so therefore, when 6,000 goes onto the credit card and we pay all of our remaining bills, the $200 credit card payment on this credit card is no longer required. So therefore, the total dollar amount for our expenses goes from 49.70 down to 47.70, which means there's an increase in cash flow when that happens. So again, 6,000 goes in, drops the balance from 4,000 down to 6. We pay bills from the credit card, and the remaining cash flow lives on the debt tool, which means there's a remaining balance on this credit card of about 47.70. So what does that look like from a cash flow perspective? So when this happens, again, there's that we have satisfied the monthly payment on the debt tool, so therefore our cash flow increased by about $200. So it went from 49.70 to 47.70, which gives us a cash flow of around $1,230. So without going into all of the detail related to how velocity banking works and how income or how the debt is eliminated on the debt tool, I just jumped right to the end. And that is when that $10,000 went on to the debt tool that had a balance of 20,000, it knocked it in half. But then when I got paid in month one, I put $6,000 onto the debt tool, knocked it down to 4,000. Guess I can make this bigger for you. Knocked that balance down to 4,000. I had to pay bills. That was month one. Well, in month two, I had to do the same thing. Another $6,000 of income came in. So I continued to pay bills for the next 5 months. It took me 5 months to pay off that $10,000 balance to zero. And when that $10,000 is paid down to zero, I then have to go find more debt. Well, if you remember the additional credit cards that I had 3 other credit cards with a $10,000 balance initially. So now I'm going to go grab that other $10,000 group of credit cards, and I'm going to do velocity banking on it the exact same way. Ultimately, it takes a total of 12 months to pay off all of this debt. So again, I started this process when I was 35. Dumping all of my income onto the debt tool. In essence, it takes me roughly 12 months to be able to pay off both the original $20,000 credit card and that group of cards that was sitting at 16, then down to 10, and in essence, down to zero in the span of 20 months. So what ended up happening during this 12-month period is I was able to eliminate 40 grand in debt using a $20,000 self-directed 401k loan, and I was able to eliminate $800 in payments. So that's $800 in cash flow that I was able to pick up in knocking down this debt. So just to kind of walk through, and I know this is rapid fire, but to walk through what that process looks like. When I started, I had about 5,000 in expenses. And then while I was doing velocity banking, I was using that $20,000 credit card, or the one that had a $20,000 limit, as my debt tool. And I had a 401k loan that I had. And so ultimately, my cash flow while I was doing velocity banking was right around 47.70. But once I paid off those remaining 3 credit cards, my cash flow jumped up, which ends up meaning my expenses ended up being 45.70. So which means my cash flow increased once I finished paying off those credit cards. So what does that mean? That means if my expenses decreased, that means my cash flow increased. And it took me 12 months. Michael started this at 35. So by the time he's 36, he's just freed up an additional, $430 in cash flow. And from here, in most velocity banking cases, we go from here to doing what? Paying off more debt. But I go back to, if you have $1,430 in cash flow, what is the true goal? I get it. He was riddled in credit card debt. He wanted to get out of that. We got out of it. We can now focus our attention on the cars, or we can focus on creating wealth. So what's the goal? And once we kind of peel back the layers to better understand the goal, what we learn is the objective is to put this money to work. Ideally, yeah, paying off the home would be great, or paying off the cars would be great. But if I've got this cash flow, is there an opportunity to do both? So as we look at the now what, just make sure. Yep. As we look at the now what, the objective now is we've used velocity banking to free up this cash flow. Now what we want to do is use reverse velocity banking to start building wealth. So this is where we transition from the traditional velocity banking process to now we want to reverse things. We want to put our income in a position to where we can actually use tax-free dollars to pay our bills, and therefore that allows us to put our regular income to work to start building income. So we want to reverse this process. And to the visual earlier, this is where these systems start to work together. We use our self-directed 401k to put ourselves in position to be able to do velocity banking, but now we want to use both of these vehicles to start funding our secure compound interest account. So, yep. So this is where we're going to bounce back and forth between some of these visuals and the calculator. But let's start here. So he's now 36 years of age. What we want to do is take all 1430 in cash flow and put it to work. Well, I think in rather, oh no, I'm sorry, not all of it. We want to take 1400 of the 1430 in. So we got 1430 in cash flow, and the objective was to take 1400 of it and put it to work. So we're going to take that $1,400 and put it into a secure compound interest account, and we're going to let that compound interest account grow till age 40. So for the next 4 years, we're going to take this $400 a month and let it compound. What does that look like?
1,400.
What did I say? 14,000?
You said 400.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. I know you've had me on the whole board. We can leave it on the whole.
Yep.
So if we were to take that $1,400 and put it to work from age 36 to 40, what would this look like? So again, 36 to 40, take the $1,400. So I'm leaving 30 in my checking account for incidental purposes, whatever the case may be. So if we were to do that, what ends up happening? Well, by age 40, I'll make this a little bit bigger. By age 40, we would have a vehicle that has cash value of somewhere around $70,000. And again, reverse velocity banking is something we totally made up. Here's the thought process. Do we have enough cash value generated inside of our cash value life insurance policy where we can take some dollar amount, some portion of this cash value and pay bills? So what bills do we have? Well, we no longer have credit card debt. We've got a house, we've got cars, and we've got our regular expenses. And I'll show you, but our regular expenses are somewhere around $1,450 every month. So the thought process is, can I borrow a portion of this $70,896 and pay my normal expenses? So we are going to reverse engineer or use reverse velocity banking to free up cash flow so that we can start building more cash value elsewhere. So for that, and we can either go for that.
Yep.
We can look at this a few different ways, and I'll make this larger so it can be seen because I understand it's a little bit small at the moment. But we're at age 40. We allow that money to compound at $1,400, and when we do so, we've got this cash value, this cash value of $70,896. So at age 40, what can I do? What can I use, or how can I use this cash value? Well, then what we want to do is we want to use this cash value to start paying for our expenses. Well, what are our expenses? If you remember, let me do that. If you remember, our expenses are $1,450. So if my expenses are $1,450, and if I was to borrow $1,450 a month out of the $70,000 that I have, is that possible? Meaning, is that something that we would be allowed to do? Again, this is a cash value life insurance policy. I have access to my cash value. This policy has been growing for the last 4 years. Is it possible that I can use or leverage or borrow some amount of my cash value to be able to pay this $1,450 expense? And the short answer to that question is, of course I can. So ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to borrow $17,400. Where did this come from? Well, it's just math. 1450 times 12 equates to $17,400. So if I 1450 times 12 equates to $17,400. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow 1450, either 1450 a month or $17,400 one time, doesn't matter. And I'm going to use that to pay my normal expenses. So what happens when I do that? When I do that, there's two things that actually occurred. So let me step back for a minute. Let's step back to 35. What happened at 35? At 35, I borrowed 20,000 and it took me 5 years to pay off that $35,000. It's 35. At 35, I borrowed $20,000 and it took me 5 years to pay off that $20,000. If you remember, it was $370 a month. $370 per month. Let's see, what does that end up being? Times 5 years. And so what ends up happening is let me do that math real quick. 370.
22,200.
See, that's why you're here. 370 times 12 and multiply that by 5. We've got 22,200. So what ends up happening is over this 5-year period, I have paid off this borrowed dollar amount, this $20,000. So by age 40, I have a brand new $20,000 that I can leverage. What else happened during this 5-year period? Well, during this 5-year period, I took $1,400 and got it compounding. So I put $1,400 a month into a SKIA that produced about $70,000 for me. So at the end of the 40th year, or so at the end of the 5th year, which being I'd be 40 years old, what do I have the capability of doing? Well, by age 40, something has occurred. I have a loan that's free and clear. And in addition, I'm in a position now to where I can use $70,000 in cash value inside of my SKIA and pay my expenses of $17,400 per year, meaning I'm going to borrow $1,450 a month out of my SKIA to pay my expenses. But when I do that, what happens? What happens if I use this borrowed money, this leveraged dollar amount to pay my bills? Well, if I do that, my cash flow is going to increase. My cash flow is going to increase by an additional $1,450, meaning I'm going to have an additional $1,450 that I get to put to work. And in addition, at age 40, I have a loan that's free and clear. So I have $20,000 loan that's available, and I have $1,450 that's also available. What can I do with that? And again, I know I move really fast. So let me just restate it again. From age 35 to 40, what did I do? I took this from age 35 to 40. I was paying back this loan that I used for Velocity Banking. So I didn't use this loan. I'm paying back this loan for the next 5 years. And the cash flow that I had created, I took this $1,400 and put it into a secure compound interest account from age 36 to 40. So for these 4 years, I got this dollar amount compounding. And by age 40, I ended up with cash value of somewhere around 70,000. So the objective is I want to use a portion of this 70,000. I want to borrow a portion of this 70,000 and pay my standard bills. And when I pay my standard bills, something occurs. When I pay my standard bills from my SKIA, I no longer have $1,450 in income that needs to go towards those same bills, which means I have now freed up 1450. So by age 40, I have 1450 available plus a $20,000 loan. So what can I do with that? Well, let's jump over here to another SKIA. We are now starting this SKIA with an additional 20,000. So we're going to dump $20,000 in as a lump sum. And I've got 1450 $1,450 available to start compounding inside of this vehicle. So from age 40 to 45, I'm going to take the 20,000 from my self-directed 401k that I borrowed, and I'm going to get that 1450 in extra cash flow compounding. So what happens during those 5 years? So from age 40 to 45, what happens? And I'll make this a little bit bigger. So what ends up happening is I now have a vehicle that has about 118,000 in it. And if I wanted to, I could start taking income of about around around 10,652. So from age 40 to 45, I've got a second SKIA that's building or generating cash value for me. But don't forget, I've also have this same SKIA that has now transitioned from not just age 40 till age 45. So the same SKIA, the original SKIA, till age 45 has also been compounding. So it's been 9 years now for the same $1,400. So now this same SKIA can generate about 21,000 in income and has about 204,000 in cash value. So I've got two vehicles working for me. I've got two SKIAs working for me. One that started at age 36 till age 45, and another that started at age 40 till age 45. Now, if I was building this for you, if this was the real world example, I don't need two SKIAs. But the reason that I'm showing two SKIAs is because it's kind of difficult to, once one is started, it's kind of difficult to now add additional dollars along the way. But if I was building this for you, we would absolutely be able to grow the one that you have and add additional dollars to the one that you have. Here's why I say this. In this calculator, it's showing as though your compound cycles are starting over. When in truth, if I was adding this money to a vehicle that was already running, we would actually not have to start over, meaning you're starting off with a vehicle that already has cash value in it, and we're just adding more fuel to that fire, which means you're actually building or generating more wealth. Moral of the story is you would have more money. So this is actually I'll call it a minimum or a bare bones showing of what that would look like. All right, question, sweetheart.
Yep. We have a few questions, but I think the biggest question is, why are you using two SKIAs to begin with? Why is this a thing? And is this what makes it reverse velocity banking? What's the point
Yep.
of starting to, other than adding more money into a policy? I get that you just said that, but for anybody who's just tuning in, might not have watched our other reverse velocity banking video, they might not understand the point of two. Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I was highlighting there. So let me come here and I'll use this one. So let me come back. So if you remember, this is the one that we started with 36 and I was allowing it to compound till age 40. And so what that means is this has already been performing for the last 4 years. If I come in now and change this number from 1,400 to, let's call it 1,400 plus 1,450 would be 2,850. If I come in now and add both of those dollar amounts here, so 2,850. Oh, that is not 2,850. 2,850. Again, 1,400 plus 1,450. It looks as though that 1,450 started at age 36, but it didn't. The 1,450 starts at age 40. So how do I show in this one calculator that I have two different dollar amounts working for me? One started at age 40 and one started at age 36. It's somewhat impossible to show inside of this calculator. So I'm only using two calculators. I'm only using two SKIAs so that I can show how each dollar amount is working for you. And as I mentioned, if I was building this, if I was creating this on my own, I don't need to. What I can do is create room inside the one that I have to be able to produce the income required or to be able to simulate what's actually happening. But so the purpose of using two right now is just so that you can see the difference between the two. Absolutely,
That's a
it's all
long way
about
of saying
income,
that.
and I think you're spot on with everything you said. I just have to make one small tweak, and that was you used the word guaranteed. And so what is guaranteed in a process like this? What is guaranteed is the income that you place into this vehicle, this $1,400 a month, the
Hmm.
income that you place in this vehicle, there is a contractual guarantee that it can't be lost due to market risk. Everything else you're seeing is a mathematical equation. If I put my money to work, and I put my money in a position to where it can be leveraged, or I can use leverage inside of this vehicle as well. There's growth on my money, and then there's this leverage dollar amount that's also going to have leverage or growth associated with it as well. So the arbitrage that I make on the money that I am leveraging, plus the growth on the money that I'm contributing, these two dollar amounts is what helps increase my cash value. And when I have
Hmm.
this cash value, this as it works with any cash value life insurance policy, this dollar amount is able to be leveraged and used, borrowed against, used for infinite banking, whatever you want. There is a dollar amount here that you're able to use for other things, that you're able to leverage against to pay a bill, buy a car, make an investment, whatever the case may be. And in this specific example, what we're doing is we're leveraging a certain dollar amount from here every year to be able to pay an expense. And when I pay that expense, that means that's less that I have to pay out of my paycheck. If I use this dollar amount to pay an expense, that means that I now have more available in cash flow. That means that I'm spending less out of my normal paycheck. And when that happens, that means everything my cash flow increases. And so all we're doing is putting that cash flow to work. But is this income that's generated guaranteed? It is secure. It is secure and it is produced by uninterrupted compound interest. The only guarantee in this product, though, is I can't lose my money due to market risk. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. That makes sense.
Well, and the death benefit, right?
Right. But again, guaranteed, though. Is the death benefit guaranteed? It's guaranteed as long as your policy stays in force, right? But it's not guaranteed just because I say it's guaranteed. So there are steps, there are things that have to be done in order for that to happen. Again, I just want to make sure that that is clear, as far as how it's stated. That's all.